Welcome back, folks, to another exciting episode here of Self-Reliance Survival. And I'm in the bush right now, and I'm kind of doing this cool thing that I built here. Um, so I've came back in the bush numerous times and built debris shelters to spend the nights and long durations of time. And it's tough. It's really, really tough to get through a cold night. So what I had this ice shack, just a pop-up Rapala Ice Series ice shack, which I love. This cube thing, like I've had this out in the wind on the middle of lakes and stuff, and it's just awesome. Just blocks the wind. I can heat it with a little Sport Cat catalytic heater. I can heat it with candles. But for this particular, this instance tonight, for example, it's going to go down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. It's going to be cold. And I've experimented with the Sport Cat and candles in minus 20, even with a really good Yane sleeping bag that I have in here, the Hunter Edition. Awesome bag, by the way, if you're looking for a winter bag. I still get cold. I still get really, really cold, and it's hard to get a good night's sleep. So my productivity to come out to my camp and hunt and trap, it decreases because I'm miserable and I'm cold and I'm tired, and it's just not nice. So I had a old army surplus. It was basically a shelter. It wasn't in very good shape. But what it did have in it was a stove jack. It had this nice, I believe this is a 6-inch hole stove jack. So I cut it out and actually sewed on Velcro to the bottom of it, and then I Gorilla Glued Velcro onto the shelter itself. So I glued on the Gorilla Glue, the receiving end of the Velcro on the 4 corners, did the measurements, and then I put the Velcro on the bottom of the stove jack that I had previously cut this out of the army shelter, and then I put it on and cut a hole. So the ice shelter is actually cut this dimension, the outside. I didn't want that ice shelter material anywhere near this 2-inch stovepipe. So I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, you're going to get a lot of cold air down and through here. That is true, but it scares me to have. I've had a lot of stoves and shelters, and like you spend more time up at night trying to look around and make sure that you're not burned to death, because you smell different things and you're like, oh, is that the tent on fire or the tarp on fire or whatnot? Now I'm probably going to invest in a hot tent, but I just wanted to do this. I wanted to try this as an experiment because I don't use the ice shack that often, and still it has this flap here, right? So even if this doesn't work and I find it's too dangerous, I can still close this flap and it Velcros over top of the hole. So I'm not, it's not a complete waste. It's not a complete bust if this doesn't work, So I wanted to try it out. I have the stove set up inside. It's a Red Valley stove, and I lit it outside yesterday to burn any of the smoke off. I recommend you do that if you have a new stove that you're putting into a shelter, even into your house. Light a big smudge in it outside to burn off the smoke. I know it's the paint, because I know it's heat treated paint, but it still burns like crazy. Like that stove ran for about 4 hours yesterday, and I could still smell it. I'll probably still get some residual smell today. But I want to run this through. I want to run through this with you step by step. I've seen videos of people doing this, and they always show the fluff. They always show the aftermath. They're like, oh, look how good it worked. It's great. I had a great night in the shelter, and it was awesome. Well, I don't know if this is going to work. So we're going to go inside. We're going to light this up. The clearances aren't met with this. Like, it's away. I'm lucky that it has this blowout here just as the tent is built itself. Gives me a little bit more clearance on the back of the stove. I'm not going to get this stove, piping hot, but for experimental purposes right now, I'm going to get it pretty hot because I want to know before I stay in this tonight, what can happen? What if that stove is piping hot? What's going to go on? I want to work out the kinks right now so that at nighttime when I'm in that shelter, I don't have to worry as much about it. I don't want to be thinking, when dark hits tonight and I fire that up, I want to be able to see right now what's going on. If it's not going to work, that's fine. I'll pull the stove out, pull the pipe out, and I'll put that flap back down over top, and I'll use my catalytic inside and some candles, and I'll live. I'll survive. It's going to be fine. But from an experimental standpoint, I'm going to run through this with you step by step to show what can go wrong. And I do recommend that if you're going to do this, this is strictly on your own. have a carbon monoxide detector and a smoke detector in there with you, with the batteries, that you know the batteries are going to work, so that in the middle of the night, if it smokes out or you get a bad draft or something's on fire, it's going to wake you up. I strongly recommend that. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to jump inside, fire this up, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, so here's the shelter. The stove is right here. There's the pipe going up. I've tried to make it so that the pipe is in kind of the center. It's not touching that fire retardant barrier, that stove jack. And then my sleeping bag and stuff's right here. Very, very close, which is, it's fine. I've done it before. You just have to be cautious. And obviously, I'm going to curl in there and not move a whole lot tonight. But yeah, we're going to hop in here right now and fire this up. I'll be able to actually load the stove at nighttime from my sleeping bed, which is great. I don't have to lose all my body heat getting up and down. So let's hop in and fire this up. Okay, folks, here we go. So I've got the draft open on the front. This is just one of these rotary dial drafts. Gonna open the door. I do have water here in case this thing goes crazy, and there's quite a bit of snow outside that I could damper this out with. So I've packed it pretty full with really dry tinder. I'm just gonna light up that birch bark, and we're gonna watch this. We're gonna see how it acts. We're gonna see if it does the job. And we're gonna see if it burns the place down. Nice sunshine coming through right here right now. But yeah, it is gonna get cold tonight. It is colder, way colder today than it was yesterday. Yeah, so she's just doing her thing. I'll check back with you guys in a minute once this thing gets rolling, and we'll really have a look at what's going on. Okay. So we're back again with the stove. So we're checking out the stove here. So I had a rockin' fire in this, and it's doing very well. It's so warm in here, it's crazy. It's almost putting me to sleep. But the one thing I did notice is that as soon as you open that door, so a trick I found out is open the door really slow, and there's a little bit less smoke comes out. Another thing I noticed about this, the setup that's wrong, just from the manufacturer itself, is see how those pipes slide over top of each other going upward? So it starts with a male and then it goes female, up to male, female. That's the female. That's the female pipe, the top one with the bevel. That's wrong. That shouldn't be like that. I've hooked up a lot of wood stoves in my day, and what happens is the creosote will leak out. Once you get creosote in your pipe, it will leak right here, right there, and it'll drip down the outside of the pipe. That's why in home applications this is reversed. So the female would be up right here. It would be a female coupler, and the males would go down inside of it. So that as the creosote builds up in the pipe and then it gets hot when you light a fire, the creosote doesn't run down the outside of the pipe, which it will do here, definitely will. It'll run inside the pipe and it'll burn itself off down in the bottom of the stove. So that's something I'm going to have to watch. Anytime I see any dripping coming from that, I'm going to have to take this all apart and clean it really well. Because that'll start a fire right there. So that'll drip down. This has burned many a home down with improper installation. It'll drip down on top of that stove, that red hot stove, and just boom, that creosote will ignite like gasoline. So yeah, it's just something I'm going to have to watch. It's just something with the design that I just don't really like. But other than that, I mean, it got super warm in here. I checked all my clearances, so I checked around the back of the shelter. Nothing. No heat. Even up top when this thing was rocking. And I'm pretty close, as you can tell. I'm about an inch away from that fire retardant membrane. It wasn't even hot. It was great. So it's super warm in here. It does get smoky, but luckily one thing I like about these ice shacks, tons of windows. So these windows they Velcro down. It's great. So when I get a bit of smoke in here, I just pop this down and out goes the smoke and away I go. But I think once I get this stove red hot tonight, you can see the nice little embers in there. Once I get this stove red hot tonight and the shelter's shut and I have a container to pee in here so I don't have to leave the shelter to go outside and lose all my heat in my tent, I'm going to be great. So all in all, I give this a win. I give this a win. It's awesome. Another thing I like to look out for is up top is how far above the shelter the chimney goes, because it's going to spit sparks out, right? The odd time, especially in cold weather. So when it's really cold outside and you're having a fire, that's when you know your draft, it'll create a crazy draft. So it'll up the chimney she'll go, that smoke will rip up and it'll actually pull lots of sparks up out of the fireplace and disperse them outside. So you want to make sure your chimney is always above the peak of whatever you're doing. And I'm about 2 feet above, which I think code for a house is like 4 feet. You've got to have your pipe above your house peak so the ashes aren't coming down on your shingles and lighting your shingles on fire. Same application here. It's up about 2 feet. I'm happy with that. And it's blowing everything away. So yeah, when it gets super cold outside like it will tonight, that cold pipe up there and that warm pipe here is going to create a draft. And that's why a lot of people in their homes don't have a good draft in their fireplace. It's because their chimney pipe's too short. So you want that interaction of the hot and cold. You want that hot air going up, hitting that cold air up top, and that'll create that vacuum, that draw, and get rid of that smoke and keep your place running really nice. So I'm going to give this a win. I'm excited to try this tonight. Obviously I got to be careful in here, but I'm ready. This is like a survival shelter, and I'm for one guy out here surviving alone in the middle of the Canadian northern wilderness. This is a win for me. This is something I can always rely on. So yeah, hope you like the video, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll be back with a lot of great more stuff. Please feel free to subscribe. Feel free to subscribe, like, and share on my new channel. I'm really excited about this channel. I also have a sister channel called Off-Grid Living with David Knoll. And I had a lot of fun doing that, but this is another side to survival that to off-grid living that I have to do, and that's, raise my own food, or capture my own food and survive in the wilderness by myself for long periods of time to be able to acquire that food to survive throughout the winter. So hope you enjoy the channel. I'm going to have a lot of great stuff on here, and hope to see you back. Okay, bye.